So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the today's session for or about becoming a thought leader. Let's welcome Mukesh for doing the session. We had him for several times already in the session, so he always is very well welcomed. So now we have him again. Thank you very much for being here, and stage is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining. I know some of you are joining from Europe, some of you are joining from India and Asia. So warm welcome from my end. We are today living in a world where we are surrounded by artificial intelligence software, which is, like, for example, ChatGPT, which is able to do a lot of things which we earlier thought was only the purview of humans. Whether it is creating new poetry, whether it is creating new images, whether it is creating new videos, arts, legal, conversations, understanding and summarizing large volumes of text. Everything is being now, done by artificial intelligence. So where does that leave us human beings, right? And what does that mean for us? Assuming that this genie cannot be put back into its box, what is it that we can do in order to continue to stay not only relevant, but also thrive in the market that we are going into? I remember about 5-6 years back, I had written a book called Thrive. It was mindsets and skill sets that you needed to succeed in a world surrounded by smart machines and intelligent algorithms. When I wrote the book, I did not realize that this moment would come so soon. Anyway, so given that we are here already, now the question is, what can we do about it? One way to look at the entire scenario around us is to think about, okay, what is it that is uniquely human, which right now only humans can do, which is being a thought leader, which is making new inferences, new ideas, and new connections in interesting ways, in different ways, therefore extending the body of knowledge that we have accumulated over the last 250,000 years as human beings, having lived in this on this beautiful planet. So today, over the next maybe about 40-45 minutes or so, I'll share with you some thinking about thought leadership. What is a thought leader? Who is a thought leader? And how does one go about becoming a thought leader, right? And maybe, we have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for question and answers. I'll be moving really fast and slow down depending upon where we are. So at any point in time, if you have a question, thought that comes to you, do not hold back. I would suggest that you put it on the chat so that everyone else who's listening and who's watching the chat, it might actually spark something new for them as well, right? So any point in time, any thought, comment, question, answers to the questions that I'm going to ask you, please put it on the chat and let's have a conversation and not just one person talking at multiple people. Yeah. So let's proceed. So before we even move, right? So the first question then is, what is thought leadership? I'd like to ask all of you to post on your chat or on the questions format. What do you think is thought leadership? I'll just take maybe about a 60 to 90-second pause and see what the responses are coming through. What, according to you, is thought leadership?
While we're waiting, your status line was visible, maybe, but now not anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
And people out there, there is a chat, but put it into the Q&A section. Q&A, not chat.
It's surprising. I have not seen a single response yet.
Yes, that's for a reason. There is a delay in sending out the session to the audience. They see it a few seconds after you said it.
Okay. So let's just give maybe another 60 to 90 seconds for them.
Yeah. You can start reading.
Okay, so let me see if it's loading up for me. Yeah, okay. To be a subject matter expert, inspirational that drive change, politicized opinion, presentation of facts, setting a position backed by evidence that others agree with and follow, think beyond the traditional, challenging status quo, a semblance of mindful conversation, mindful listening, and thinking from others' perspective. Interesting. Being an expert and making yourself known in your field of expertise, influence people with one's thoughts, creative solutions, influencing other people with your ideas and opinions, visualize a better state, smart way to get there, thoughts that could be used to realize a vision, all great ideas, right? The best definition that I could have that I have seen so far from a thought leadership is the following. Adding to existing knowledge, new perspectives and ideas is thought leadership. So let me just repeat. Adding to existing fountain of knowledge or existing quantum of knowledge through new ideas or new perspectives is thought leadership. Two components here, right? So one is thought, which is thinking, which is all about new ideas, new ways to think, new perspectives, all of that. And the other is leadership, which is the act of leading, which means that you have to do something with all those thinking that you have done, which means that you need to be able to publish or act upon or share whatever you've thought of to the world so that it becomes and it adds to the fountain of knowledge that is already existing. It is not enough for someone to think new ideas. It is important for them to share those new ideas so that it becomes collective knowledge, and that is then thought leadership. So just keep this in mind as we go through the session, right? So now that we know what thought leadership is, the question then comes, who can be considered a thought leader? So Michelle, can I ask you to post the link to the survey that you've put together on the chat, and can I ask everyone to kind of respond to that link and tell us who can be considered a thought leader. You can also answer the question on the Q&A just like you answered the previous question, and fill in the form. It's a one question form, so it's okay. You can just copy paste it here as well. If not, you can choose which medium you want to interact with, right? So who can be considered a thought leader?
The question, I prepared the question, do you consider yourself a thought leader? So, okay.
Exactly.
So it's just a yes, no answer. So no names to put in.
Yeah, thank you. And if you think someone else is a thought leader, can you put their names on the chat as well, please? Anyone that you think or you consider as a thought leader. And if possible, can you also answer why? I'll give another 60 seconds before we move forward. And I mean, I don't see any answers, any questions coming in the Q&A section. So maybe another 10 seconds. You can post it later on as well as you come back from the survey as well. So let's move on because we only have about 45 minutes more to go. So according to me, who can be considered a thought leader? Someone who has a body of work that he can point to, which actually adds to the conversation or to the fountain of knowledge on a particular topic. It can be any topic. It could be about technology. It could be around artificial intelligence. It could be on leadership. It could be about thought leadership. It could be about cooking. It could be about management. It could be whatever topic, but it has to be about a topic. So someone who has a body of work publicly available and visible, where he or she continuously on an ongoing basis shares their thoughts, perspectives, and points of view, such that it actually increases the overall collective knowledge for that particular topic. Right? Yeah, S.N. Goenka, Elon Musk, Winston Churchill, Steve Jobs. Yeah, Donald Trump, maybe, yeah, he's a thought leader as well, for good or bad. Einstein, yeah, all of them are thought leaders. The potential to be a thought leader exists in all of us. All we need to do is to be able to cultivate that potential and realize that potential. That's what we want to talk about for the next maybe 35 minutes or so. So everyone talks about curiosity, right? So and the importance of curiosity when it comes to thought leadership, or for that matter, any knowledge work and learning. So curiosity, when you apply it to people, it leads to empathy and connection with those people. Curiosity, when applied to ideas, leads to creativity and learning. And we'll find that the single most important criteria or single most important indicator of someone becoming a thought leader is their ability to be curious and apply that curiosity to ideas in their field of expertise in which they want to become a thought leader, such that they continue to learn and at the same time extend the knowledge that is already existing. So curiosity applied to ideas leads to creativity and learning, which then leads to expertise, which then leads to thought leadership. Right? So that's the cycle that we're talking about. Now, if you actually look at the journey from someone, from the time someone is a beginner to someone becoming a master of a particular field, because mastery is always, the entire journey is always on a particular field. So if someone, let's say, for example, I do not know how many of you know. OK, so let me take an example of Roger Federer. He is a master at his craft of tennis. That doesn't necessarily mean that he becomes a master at something else, at cooking or cricket or whatever. So mastery is always about a particular topic. Same thing, thought leadership is always about a particular topic, right? So this is the journey that everyone takes. So you start as a beginner where you had absolutely no idea about what about the topic that you want to become a master in. You slowly start learning. You then become an advanced beginner, which means that you understand some level of concepts. Then you become competent, which means that, given a particular task, based on the knowledge that you have already gained, you are able to complete certain tasks without any issues. Then you become practitioners, which means that you're not only able to do what is expected out of you based on what you already know, but you can also look at whatever is available outside of what you know. So which means that you learn on the go as you go and apply those new concepts that you have learned into your work. So that is when you become a practitioner. Then you become an expert when you are able to add new concepts, create new connections, come up with new ideas for that particular field of work, which then are being used by others in your field. So the recognition of you having added to the knowledge that is existing in that particular field. Master is when you have mastery over not only the existing skills, but you're also able to take things from completely different domains and see and apply those to your domain. That is when true mastery happens. And again, once you become a master, generally you again go back to becoming a beginner. And then you go through the same cycle again, most likely for the same topic or at times for some other topic. Right? So that's the journey. And this journey takes time, takes effort. You cannot just start at beginner and become an expert overnight. Right? How much ever you read, it has to be experienced, it has to be applied, it has to be internalized in order for you to become from a beginner to journey through to becoming an expert and to become a master, right? And it takes time. So today what I'm going to share with you is everything that is going to accelerate this journey. How can we accelerate this journey so that you become an expert much faster than it would otherwise take time? Compress, leverage things. So there are 3 ways that you can do this, right? So you need to learn differently than everyone else. You need to see things differently than everyone else. You need to think differently than everyone else. And something that I'm not mentioning here, but you need to keep in mind is that you need to do things that is different from everyone else, which means that you publish, continuously publish. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter how often, but the important thing is that you publish whatever you're thinking, seeing, learning on an ongoing basis, right? So that's the underlying thing that you should always keep in mind. So we'll look at each one of these things separately and look at how we can do each one of these in our own lives as practices. So each one of these is a practice, and the more intentional we are with these practices, the faster is our journey from being a novice or a beginner to becoming an expert and then finally a master. So first, let's look at how can you look at things differently. So the first and the foremost principle of adult learning is the fact that we are always learning. It's in a loop. So you do something assuming or expecting a certain result, right? So that's the first step, which is act. Then you observe whether or not you got the result. If yes, was that expected? If no, why not? You observe. Then you reflect, okay, what could potentially be the reason about it? Even if you get what you got, you reflect on whether it is because of what you thought was the reason, or was there something else, or was that just plain luck, right? And then adjust your thinking and act again. And this process of action, observation, reflection, and adjustment is an ongoing process. And the more intentional we are in applying this to a particular field, the more understanding we get about that particular field, the more we see things that are different from everyone else. Because remember, not everyone is intentional about doing these 4 steps. Just the fact that you are doing this intentionally makes it very different for you than anyone else. Add to that, your brain evolved not to see truth or objective truth. It evolved to survive, which means it's a pattern matching machine. It will look at the entire thing that it sees and will match patterns based on old patterns that it already has. In a sense, the current AI artificial intelligence algorithms do just that. They have a certain set of patterns. They look at everything and match whether or not it matches the pattern. If yes, it gives certain thing else. If no, it does something else. That's exactly what our brains do as well. And by focusing it on a particular process like this, you are giving it instruction that it will see things which you would otherwise not see. One of the most important things that we learn is, as infants, we learn to walk, and that from there everything else starts, right? This is Dr. Karen Adolph. She studies infant motor development, which is how do they move as young babies. You've seen, I don't think you've ever come across a baby who falls down 4 times or 3 times and says, okay, this is just too hard and I'm not going to do this anymore. Doesn't happen. As long as they're babies. Happens all the times when we become adults. Things become difficult and we kind of move on, right? So when studying the motor development, Karen Adolph says that learning happens in 4 ways. It is embodied, which is in your body. So when walking, there are forces acting on the body, which actually teaches the infant about what works and what doesn't work. Same way, every time we do something, we act, there is something else that comes to you, you observe, you reflect, and everything is embodied within you. The more you are able to feel what exactly it feels like when you do a certain thing, the more you reflect what it feels, what you think about it, the more you are able to embody the ability to learn. So the second one is embedded. The environment, the physical environment in which we live in, has a significant impact on whether or not we are willing to take that little risk to step at the edge of chaos, as someone very wise once said. We need to be able to be intentionally create a physical environment which allows us to do that. In one scenario, this could be as simple as taking a different route to office every day when you drive to office. It could be as simple as taking a different route to jog or to run when you're doing your exercises, right? As simple as that. So the environment in which we are in the most of the times has a significant impact on how we learn. Learning is enculturated, which means that the people around us, the culture around us that we surround ourselves with has a significant impact. And so which means that if you really want to learn and if you want to become expert, you need to be surrounded, not just physically, but intellectually as well. So whether it is through YouTube channels that you're watching, through blogs that you're reading, through books that you're reading, through people that you associate with, people who interview with, conferences that you attend, everything needs to be intentional about the topic that you're trying to do. Last but not the least, learning is enabling, which means that the more you learn, the better you get at learning, and the better you get at learning, the more you are able to learn. And it's a self-fulfilling loop, which makes learning that much more easier. So keep this in mind when you are looking at the environment that surrounds you, the people that surround you, the culture, and at the last but not the least, ensure that you are able to use your entire body when you are learning, which means that what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, and combine all of them together. And that will internalize the learning that we are doing. So we're talking about fast track learning, right? So that's key. Now, learning a particular topic can also be looked at from these lenses as well, right? So whether you're learning something that you're interested in, you're intentional about what you're learning, who you're learning it from, how you're learning. So all of that is being intentional about learning, being interested in the topic that you're learning, and the ability and the opportunity for applying what you're learning. Right. So this is a Venn diagram, classic Venn diagram. So if you're interested to learn and are intentional about it, but don't have the opportunity to apply it, you're nothing but learning junkies. You're just learning for the sake of learning. If you are intentional about something, learning something, you have the ability to apply it, but are not interested in the topic, you're being forced. You're forced learners. If you're able to apply what you're learning, but you just learn whatever comes along, which means that there is no intention, then you're zombie learners. Learn whatever comes through, whatever you can apply, you apply. That's about it. There is no intention to it. So once all of these three things come together is the growth zone. That is where true, powerful learning, accelerated learning happens. So we need to be intentional about what we want to learn, who we want to learn it from, interested in the topic that we want to learn, and have the ability to apply what we are learning. So we will look at how you can apply what you're learning when we talk about thinking differently and also seeing differently as well. So this is another frame for you to think about when it comes to accelerated learning. Now the question is, where do these ideas come from, and how do you develop? How do you see this origin of ideas, right? So the ideas can come either from outside of you or from within you. Now there are 4 things that you can do with ideas that surround you, right? That you see around you. So number 1, you can curate ideas. These are ideas of other people. So for example, let's say you want to become a thought leader in marketing. So which means that you look at some of the leading thought leaders when it comes to marketing. Let's say Seth Godin, Dave Trott, or for that matter, Mitch Joel. So these are all really accomplished, great thought leaders when it comes to marketing. You look at their stuff and you curate them. You can curate it on a LinkedIn, on your blog. You can curate it as a newsletter. You can curate it as a Twitter feed. You can curate it as a TikTok videos where you kind of summarize everything that they post. You just summarize it on a TikTok channel. That's curation. Nothing but taking somebody else's idea and putting them all together in one place so that you can go back and scroll through the zeitgeist for that particular topic. Second way to do it is propagation, which means that you're not just curating this. On top of the curation, you're commenting on it as well. You're saying, here is what Seth Godin said, and this is why I like it. Here is what Mitch Joel said, but here is how or why I do not agree to it. So you talk about yes and, or yes but, and also. So these are the three frames that you can look at to move from curation to propagation. Then the third step is aggregation, which means that you see, okay, Seth Godin said this, Mitch Joel said this. When you put this together and add to what Dave Trott said, here is what I believe is true. So this is all about aggregation. Again, you're taking somebody else's idea, you're taking somebody else's thought leadership, and adding on top of that your thoughts as aggregation in one place and publishing it all in one place. Last but not the least is creation. This is where original ideas that you bring to the point of to the market. This could be original point of view based on your experience, expertise, essence, or it could be completely fresh ideas that you've been inspired by or you imagined, right? So that's the spectrum, and you can think of it as a speed dial. On the lower end of the dial is curation, and as you go faster and faster, you tend towards creation. The more you are towards the right hand side of the dial, the more thought leadership you are exhibiting. As long as you're publishing, just keep that in mind. So second, learning. How do you learn different? Accelerated. Now the second topic is how do you see different? Again, accelerated. So these are 6 ways that you can actually take an idea, see an idea, and play with it, right? And come up with new ideas. So this is where your aggregation and your curation can take place. So you can imagine new stuff. You can have interaction with multiple people. You can have ideas interacting with each other. So you take one idea, take another idea, kind of see how both of them come together, and what is the result when you bring these two ideas together. Intention. This is the best example of intention is James Dyson. He wanted to create something which a vacuum cleaner which solved a particular problem. He was intentional about it. It took him 5,000 prototypes for him to actually come up with something that actually worked. So intention, deep, strong intention. Intuition. So over a period of time, when you've done something really well, you develop an intuition for it. This is where someone might say, okay, something feels off, right? That's the ability for you to, number one, sense that something is feeling off or something is feeling good, and locating it either in your body or what exactly is the cause that is giving you that intuition is super amazing. You can be inspired by the work that someone else has done, right? So for example, this entire presentation that I'm delivering today is inspired by a work of someone called Matt Church. We will talk about him at the end of the talk as well. And last but not the least, imitation, which is what you see all around you. So nature is bound of creative and innovative ways that organization and nature works together. And there are hundreds of thousands of discoveries, products that are imitating what is already seen in nature. So you just keep your eyes and ears open, right? And all you need to do is take an idea from somewhere in a different field in the nature and apply it to a particular problem in your industry, in your organization, and that in your field of expertise, and that can create significant new jumps for that particular field. Open innovation also follows a combination of these. And the combination of these is when it becomes powerful. When you combine 2, 3 of these are all ingredients. How do you mix and match this is where magic happens, right? Now, someone once very well said, I think if I'm not wrong, I'm forgetting the name of the person who said this, but he said, okay, so Benjamin Zanders and Rosamund Zanders in their book, The Art of Possibility, say that the entirety of our life is a game we are playing. If we take that attitude, it becomes much more easier for us to experiment with what we are doing, right? So if you take that attitude, then you're playing a game, right? So you are playing the game, which is the self and the game coming together. And the game is being played on a board. It could be a chess, it could be like something like chess, it could be something like a Monopoly or whatever, that's the board. And then there are rules of the game. So if you really want to see differently, what options do you have here? You can change the game or the objective of the game. You can change yourself and what you're thinking about the game and your attitude towards the game. Or you can change the rules of the game. Each one of this, if you think and see from that perspective, different ideas will pop up. Different opportunities to influence the game will pop up, depending upon the perspective that you are taking. So seeing differently is all about perspectives, all about point of views. And each one of these will give you a different point of view. Again, seeing is all about having lenses. So if you wear glasses like I do, and if you go back to the day when you first time wore a glass like that, I distinctly remember I was probably in class 7, which means that I was probably 12, 13 years old, and I was in school and I couldn't read what the teacher was writing on the board. And I went and complained to my dad and he took me to the doctor. We got the glasses done. And the first day when I came to school and put on my glasses and saw the teacher write, it's a completely different world because I could see what is being written. So which means the lens has an important role to play. Now, everything that we see can be seen through multiple lenses. This is one set of lenses that I am talking about here. So you can see it from a individualistic lens. So how does this particular idea impact an individual? You can see it from a team's lens as a small set of 10 people, 12 people, 15 people team. How does this impact them? You can look at it from an organization, which is 100 people strong. You can look at it from an industry, which is multiple organizations put together. You can look at it from a country, or you can look at it from a culture. Anthropology is all about looking at what we see through various lenses, right? So in a book called Orbit Shifting Innovation, Rajiv Narang in the book talks about how do you create orbit shifting innovations, or in different words, thought leading ideas which could potentially have disruptive impact on industries, is to break the gravity at each one of these levels. So each one of these is actually like a gravitational force. It pulls you down. So the culture, country, at a country, there is a certain level of expectation. At an industry, there is a certain level of expectation, which is like gravity. At an organization, there is a certain level of restrictions or conflict, what do you call it? Constraints, right? So each one of these levels offers a different set of constraints. And the ability for us to move beyond these constraints has significant impact on our thought leadership. right? Another perspective to, or another way to look at lenses is, for example, if you look at a binocular or a microscope, telescope or a microscope. One takes you deep down, hyper micro. The other one takes you deep out, which is hyper macro. The ability to move between these lenses, between these perspectives, is what will give you ideas. It will give you perspectives and points of view that will make it unique for you. Add to that, everything else that you do becomes powerful, right? So last but not the least, we will start thinking about how do you think differently, right? So how do you fast track thinking differently? Now, there are three forms of thinking primarily, if you ask me. So one is all about contemplation, which is, you're thinking about something. Okay, I'm thinking about, let's say, how to survive in a world surrounded by artificial intelligence. You're mindful of something. So you're mindful always of something. You're mindful of your breathing. You're mindful of your surroundings. You're mindful of the breath. You're mindful of the sounds that you're hearing. You're mindful of the smell that you're smelling. You're mindful of the zeitgeist. You're meditating on something, which is you're deep thinking about something, on something. Deeply thinking about models, deeply thinking about thought leadership, deeply thinking about artificial intelligence, deeply thinking about automotive as an industry, deeply thinking about retail as an industry, deeply thinking about distributed ledgers. So you either contemplate, you meditate, or you're mindful. Right? Each one of these helps us move from a question, which is curiosity about something, to insight, which is the exclamation mark. And from that insight comes more questions. From those questions, thinking about that question, meditating on it, being mindful about it, leads to more insights. And it's an ever never-ending positive loop, which helps you go deeper and deeper and deeper on a particular topic. Right? So every kind of thinking can be bucketed into one of these three things. So being intentional about each one of these things and using each one of these three things and applying it to the topic on which we want to become an expert fast tracks our ability to move from beginner to an expert and then to a master. Right? So then you start thinking in questions. Right? It's all about why, who else, why not, what if, how, when, where. Should we? Is the opposite true? What if the opposite is also true? In what conditions will the opposite be also true? You take an idea and you start thinking, asking these questions about that particular idea. I mean, when I say idea, I mean your topic of expertise. Within your topic of expertise, you pick a particular area and start asking these questions. What are the beliefs that leads to this? What if the belief is false? In what conditions, or what should be true in order for this to be false? What should be true in order for the opposite to be also true? Who is doing this? Who said what? Why? What did they mean? All of these questions, when we ask of ourselves, they accelerate our understanding of that particular topic. They create depth for us in that particular topic. And at the same time, they give you point of view, because your true essence will shine through in all of these things by answering all of these things. Your true individuality will shine through the answers that you're asking these questions. And that point of view, when published on a regular basis, is what will form the basis on which your thought leadership stands. So this is thinking in questions. So first one is forms of thinking in questions. The next one is all about thinking in shapes or models or thinking in geometry. Right? So you take any thought leadership, anybody, you take any non-fiction book. I can guarantee you will find a model somewhere inside the book. It could be a geometric model, it could be a 4-quadrant, it could be a Venn diagram, it could be a a graph, it could be a curve, it could be as an what do you call it? Acronym, a leap, a simple, simpler, whatever it is. It is always have a model. What do models do? They help us play with concepts. So let's take the simple, humble line, right? So you can look at one line, starting at a point and going towards a direction, and say, okay, if I want to consider this particular, concept, let's say digital marketing, and I want to look at it as a spectrum. So what are all the different parts? What could potentially be the different parts of the spectrum? And then go deeper in those particular parts of those spectrum. When you apply the same line with two different concepts, one at one end, the opposite of that at the other end. If you remember, I tried to do that a little while earlier. This is nothing but two concepts, which is ideas coming from outside of you, ideas coming from within you. And what I've done is I've looked at the spectrum. Right? So that's exactly what I'm talking about here. You can take two different ideas, opposing ideas, and see what are the different spectrum or what are the different phases that come when it comes to that. So you take a triangle, and these are three different ideas coming together, which is what I talked about here. Or it could be like a Maslow's hierarchy with a base and every step going forward. So which is nothing but a triangle with lines within the triangle. Or you take the square, which is nothing but 4 ideas in relationship to each other. So you take, let's say, for example, Stephen Covey's quadrant model for time management. So Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? So it's nothing but 4 ideas in relationship to each other. You saw what I did here, for example, is nothing but 3 circles coming together and 3 concepts being in relationship to each other. And once you start playing, and again, this is nothing but 2 such concepts coming together, 4 concepts, depending upon how you look at it. So all you need to do is take these concepts within your field and see what relationship do they have with each other when you combine them or put them into models. The more unique combinations you are able to bring in, the more unique your insight is going to be. Right? Last but not the least, thinking in metaphors. So metaphors are, how do I put it, shortcuts to explain your idea in a way that someone who has not done all the hard work that you have done coming up with the idea, but is still able to immediately grasp what you're talking about. Right? So one way to do that is to try and express your ideas so that someone who's a 7-year-old can understand the idea, which means that it has to be really simple and really basic, but at the same time should actually be able to explain what you're trying to explain, right? So this is what Richard Feynman talked about when he said, if you can't explain what your expertise you're an expert in to a 7-year-old, you're not an expert yet. So the same idea or the same concept, can you explain it to a 17-year-old? What do they expect? They expect something to be inspirational. So can you move your idea from a 7-year-old to a 17-year-old. A 37-year-old, it needs to be really practical. He's someone who's got 2 kids, full-time job, already tired, mid-level career, too much stress. So you need to break it down really practical. And at 70, it has to be, in the words of a wise man, someone who's seen the world, who's seen everything. So how do you express your idea to someone who's 70-year-old? The other way to do it is to give an example. So this is like Roger Federer example that I gave you is a metaphor. So Roger Federer, just because he's an expert in tennis, doesn't necessarily automatically translate him to be an expert in cricket. So same way. I'm pretty sure that, as engineers, we would have done these tests in which they ask if A is to X, then A is to X, then B is to dash. Exactly like that. You create a metaphor. This is like, or you take a stories, that time when, and then you build the story, which kind of explains what you're trying to explain. So this ability to think in metaphors gives you access to a different section of your brain than all the analytical thinking that we have spoken before about. Even the thinking in models, it gives you access to both. It gives you access to both your analytical thinking and as well as to your relational and emotional thinking as well. So that's what I mean by full spectrum thinking. And then you can bring it all together on a single page of paper. So this is Matt Church. He runs something called as Thought Leaders Business School. I'm a student of that school. He talks about capturing an idea and doing full spectrum thinking about the idea. So what does he mean? So the idea exists in a context. The idea itself is a concept, and the content is all about tactical aspects that kind of prove what you're trying to say. So if you actually look at it, it's got 7 stages. I'm sorry, it's a little dull, but in the context, it is about models, which is frameworks, metaphor, which is about stories and metaphors, and the concept itself, the core idea that you're trying to say. This is the core idea that you have to kind of reword it into 7-year-old, 17-year-old, 37-year-old, or 70-year-old. And then content is, can you back it up with either a published study, which means that you are standing on the shoulders of giants who have already done a lot of deep thinking on that particular topic. So which means that the idea or the expertise that you're talking about stands on real solid ground, and at the same time are able to illustrate it with a story. So if you actually look at it, if you divide this sheet into 4 parts, top to bottom, left to right. So everything on the left, which is the model and the study, is analytical thinking, accessing your analytical part of the brain. Everything on the right, which is metaphor and story, is accessing the creative or emotional part of your body, of your brain. And the concept is a combination of both. So this is what he calls full spectrum thinking. So we are at about 50 minutes, if I'm not wrong. So I said I'll take about 50 minutes to present and maybe 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So I'll just stop there and see if I can take any questions. So these are the 3 books that I've written. I have a blog that the QR code is there, and the podcast that I host is also listed there. So I'm not just saying this for the sake of saying it. I've been publishing on my blog for the last 13 years, 850 blog posts, 65 plus episodes on my podcast, 3 books. So I have been practicing what I asked you to do. So thank you for the opportunity.
So thank you. So we have actually 7 questions. Let's see how many we can go through. It was some kind of hard to filter the questions from all the text in the Q&A. So I hope I did not forget anyone asking a question. So let's go through them. What I found. If your question is missing, please post it again. So First question, why do you say continuously provide?
Sorry, come again. Why do you say continuously?
Provide.
Continuously provide. Provide what? I'm sorry, I'm missing the context here.
I guess it was at the point when you said you continuously have to provide thoughts or things or whatever.
Publish, continuously publish on an ongoing basis. Yeah, so thought leadership is about building a body of work, which over a period of time moves from curation to propagation to aggregation to creation. And that progression, for it to be visible, you need to be able to have a body of work. And that is the reason why I said you have to, on an ongoing basis, continuously publish your thinking so that, number one, you can go back and see how your thinking has evolved. Someone who wants to see how your thinking has progressed is able to do so as well. I hope that answers the question. If not, please do post a follow-up question on the chat as well, please.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Does one need to be visible, a visible person, in order to be a thought leader?
Yes. See, there are two ways to think about it. So one is that I want to do thought leadership for my personal benefit, which means that I'm doing this for nobody else, but just for my learning. Then you don't need to publish. Then you don't need to be visible at all. You just find a notebook, you write a diary, you continuously, on an ongoing basis, continuously, think about all these things, record it somewhere, and you're good. But if you are, the reason why you want to become a thought leader is so that, number one, you get recognized as a thought leader. Number two, you get invited to give speeches, to provide your thought leadership, to provide your expertise. Then it is important that you are visible. And in a world where everyone is visible right now, if you actually go to LinkedIn and see the amount of posts that are being done, the amount of blogs that are being created, the amount of TikTok videos that are being created, you will find that it is, everyone is trying to be visible. Now the point is, you need to be visible and stand out on the basis of the depth of your thinking and understanding of your subject. And for that, you need to be visible, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. That might be the answer for the next question. Next question would be, why should we publish?
Again, so you publish so that, number one, as I said, thought leadership is adding to the existing fountain of knowledge. If you do not publish, you're not adding to the existing fountain of knowledge. The entire scientific method or the scientific process is based on the practice of publishing research papers. The entire foundation of scientific practice is based on each one of us publishing what we are thinking about, what we are doing. It's nothing but the same thing here as well. So you have to publish so that it gets added to the fountain of knowledge, and therefore you get recognized as someone who's contributed to that, and therefore by extension are a thought leader.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How often should we publish?
That's a good question. That depends a lot. It doesn't matter how often you publish. What matters is that you publish on an ongoing basis. And ideally, something that I've not been too great at is at a regular interval. So if you want to publish every day, so be it. If you want to publish every week, so be it. If you want to publish every fortnight, so be it. If you want to publish every month, so be it. The only thing is, it's great if you can actually maintain a sort of rhythm. So the challenge with me has been that because of the work that we do and the amount of travel and the amount of busyness that we have, for me it becomes very difficult for me to kind of publish on a schedule. But over the last 13 years, on average, I've published 60 to 65 blog posts every year. So that's the consistency that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Next question. how do we know that we are capable enough to publish, as there will be always people or will always be someone better than us in the field?
So the point of thought leadership is not to be better than everyone else. The point of thought leadership is to be different than everyone else. Okay, let me say this again. Thought leadership is about, as I said, adding original ideas or original perspectives or points of view. Now, each one of us in our lives has gone through and experienced life in a different way. Our experience, our expertise, our essence is unique. The moment we are able to bring out that essence, that uniqueness that we are, and our point of view on a particular topic, that is unique. And that uniqueness is thought leadership. You do not need to be better than everyone else. You just need to be different than everyone else. And different, not just for the sake of being different, but different from having gone through and having done the depth of work and effort in becoming an expert. So once you're able to do that, you are a thought leader. You don't need to be better, just be different.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is a lot of text. So looking at the time, so give it a chance, so give it a try. So a lot of text. Creative AI had already been demonstrated, for example, by IBM Watson maybe 10 years ago, creating new cocktail recipes and mixing drinks accordingly. And numerous guests have confirmed the quality and taste. Why should we assume AI, plus numerous sensors and actuators if needed, cannot become as creative as that and mix any other new cocktails of thoughts, concepts, and ideas even better, faster, wilder than people? Could it be just due to the limitation to current knowledge and imagination, or even human arrogance, refusing to accept the creative potential of AI? By the way, how do we know we are not an AI and don't leave the matrix?
Interesting question, Andre. Given where we are right now, I do not think that sentient AI, which is what will be needed in order for it to be able to do all of that that you say, we are not anywhere close to having a sentient AI. Having said that, maybe in our lifetimes we might see that happen. So we'll need to evolve faster than the AI evolves. One of the things that I have a poster at my home in my cupboard. Every time I open my cupboard to put on a new dress, I see the poster. It says, once machines start learning, they'll never stop. Neither should we. Now it's a race. The faster we are able to keep pace with the evolution of artificial intelligence and smart machines, the better it is for us as individuals. Someone I was reading an article the other day. It said that if the AI evolution continues to keep pace as it has been in the last few months, in 5 years' time they will not require any coder to do any coding. So the artificial intelligence will be able to create all code. So what do coders do then? So what do copywriters do then? Because it is able to do all of that copywriting today. What do people like me do who write? So we just need to keep pace with the evolution of AI and evolve ourselves. Humanity as a species takes ages, hundreds of thousands of years to evolve. We don't have that luxury anymore. We have to be super fast in our evolution, in adapting to whatever we are seeing around as well. So I hope that answers your question. Are we in a matrix? I don't know. I don't believe we are. So I think that is what matters most.
Okay, thank you. So looking at the time, so we reached the top of the hour. So I sent you.
Maybe I'll just answer one question if it is okay.
Okay.
There's a question saying that does a leader in the organization need to be a thought leader? Need not be. Being a thought leader is different from being a leader. But having a leader who is also a thought leader is always advantageous.
Okay, thank you. Said that, it's top of the hour. Thank you very much for being here, talking to us, inspiring the people. Thank you very much to everybody attending. As always, see you next time and goodbye.
Thank you for the opportunity, Michael. Thanks everyone for your time and attention. Take care. Happy thinking.